The moon's brightness reminded him of the first time his eyes saw a cosmic terror. He had still been an investigator, but his cases were what anyone would expect from his profession: missing women, blackmailed businessmen, cheating souls. His living had been good back then, as those jobs paid well. One evening, he had been following a gentleman across several blocks, expecting the man to lead him to the brothel his wife suspected him of disappearing to every Tuesday between 9 and 10. Kipner was confident the man hadn't detected his presence despite the deserted streets save for a few passed-out drunks. Half a block from the brothel, the man suddenly disappeared into an alley. Robert crept up slowly to the alley, carefully avoiding crunching gravel on the sidewalk. It was a particularly narrow gap between the buildings, just wide enough for a man to walk through without turning sideways. He didn't have a light source with him. No sound came from the alley. Noise from the city elsewhere was far off, leaving only the cry from a stray cat and the rustling of littered paper. He suspected the man was not far inside, so Robert stood motionless. Finally, his ears heard faint movement that caused his hair to stand on end. Bone on bone crackled. His mind filled with terrible visions of fractured limbs and necks as the sharp, distinct sound ricocheted off the walls. It came from more than 10 feet away, but Robert found it challenging to enter the darkness. He wasn't worried about being jumped by muggers. His confidence in a fight had kept him in business and gotten him out of sticky situations. But this was no mugger. The sound was grotesque and bizarre. Fear spread quickly in his mind. The crunching continued for several minutes, rattling downward like a relieved spine at a chiropractor. Before he mustered enough courage to investigate further, a long, scraping sound escalated from within the darkness against the brick walls. The movement was slow and steady, with a high pitch, as each scraping sound became closer than the last. Robert backed slowly from the opening, stumbling off the curb's edge. He clung to the bathing light of the street lamp like a child to a blanket. Not bringing his revolver was an immediate regret, but the case had indicated a non-violent solution. He wasn't sure what would emerge, but he would have felt more relieved and better protected. Nothing prepared him for what he saw that night, though. It changed his lifestyle, his profession, and his philosophies. It wrecked the truths that he had held that led him down the paths he chose daily. The first bone-like finger that pierced the thick black darkness sent chills down his spine, and he found his mouth open in shock. Each extended piece of bone that reached out and curled around the lip of the building pushed Robert back another step before realizing he had left the comfort of the streetlight. A monstrosity of bone and black, ooze-like tissue pulled itself out from the alley. Numerous appendages arched from its body, encased in a thick, oily membrane with exposed, protruding white cartilage. Its movement, toppling over itself with sudden, jerking motions, was unnatural and unpredictable. Sheer terror planted Robert's feet to the ground while his instinct screamed to flee. He could only stare at the behemoth as it crackled from the alley onto the sidewalk. It quickly made for a nearby gutter drain and, despite its proportion, promptly slipped through the grate bars and into the sewer below. Suddenly, Robert felt very alone. The sound of absolute silence kept him frozen in fear until his mind finally broke through. He fell to his knees, shaking and sobbing uncontrollably as a soft, warm mist began to fall. It left no evidence of its existence, but Robert could not erase the vision from his mind. He tried to dissuade himself from it, blaming it on a few swigs of whiskey earlier, but he was still terrorized by morning.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.